The devil is a divider who will use almost any tactic to separate Christians from Christ, except for one tactic. He doesn't typically come right out and say, deny Jesus Christ, because he knows anybody who loves Jesus would immediately reject that suggestion. So he tends to use more subtle means and more subtle words, but more on that later. For now, let's deal with something closer to home and very much in the forefront of many people's minds, the 2016 presidential race. But let's do so from a Catholic perspective. Let's consider the intersection of the practice of our faith with the exercise of our civic duty, especially when it comes to voting. Let's first acknowledge that there has never been a political party in the United States that is perfectly aligned with Catholic teaching on every issue. But that does not mean that we are therefore automatically free to vote for any party we want, because one party can be much further from Catholic principles on the most important issues than the other party. As a result of that, we are often faced with the task of discerning which party and which policies are most in line with Catholic teaching and which ones are not. So many issues are subject to the prudential judgment of Catholic voters. What does that mean? We hear that term thrown around, prudential judgment. It means that Catholics can legitimately disagree with each other and even with their priest on the best way to address issues such as racial injustice, education, the economy, immigration, and healthcare, and still remain in good standing with the Church. There are other issues, however, which touch on matters of intrinsic evil. We hear that word as well. What does that mean? These are actions that can never, at any time, under any circumstance, be committed, promoted, or even enabled by a faithful Catholic. But setting aside issues of intrinsic evil for now, let's consider some of the more common issues for which Catholics can legitimately exercise prudential judgment. Let's look at a few specific ones. One such issue is affirmative action. This program aims to eliminate perceived disadvantages that minorities face when competing, for example, for entry into college. In our nation, one party favors affirmative action to bring justice and balance in our multiracial society. The other party holds that it penalizes high achievers by giving limited spots in the college classroom to less qualified students, while denying more qualified students access. One party sees affirmative action as a matter of justice, the other sees it as a matter of injustice. But suppose a candidate for president promoted a policy that would make it legal for someone to kill a black person if that black person created a hardship for them getting the education they desired. How many of you would be comfortable voting for that candidate? Thank God I don't see a single hand. Another issue that falls under the category of prudential judgment is immigration. One of the major political parties seeks to allow immigration with very little restriction. The other party is concerned that unrestricted immigration leads to, among other things, non-citizens taking jobs that could be worked by citizens. One party favors open borders, the other party favors law and order. Now, suppose a candidate for president promoted a policy that would make it legal for someone to kill a Hispanic person if the presence of that Hispanic person made it more difficult to pursue one's career of choice. How many of you would be comfortable voting for that candidate? Thanks be to God, I don't see a single hand. Thank God we don't have a candidate from either party who says that they condone such policies. Nobody in their right mind would say such a thing, that we could kill blacks or Hispanics or anyone else just for the sake of protecting personal, economic, or educational interests. Nobody would say that. But as we'll see in a moment, there is a candidate in this 2016 race for president who, along with that candidate's political party, does in fact sanction the killing of blacks and Hispanics in the situation previously described under one particular condition: that black person or that Hispanic person is still in his or her mother's womb. Now, this candidate and party certainly won't say it that way, not publicly anyway. Instead, they use words like choice, or reproductive rights, or women's health, or other sanitized statements in order to cover up what abortion is and what abortion does. Now, before we go any further in discussing the extremely sensitive issue of abortion, I want to say a word to any woman in this congregation or anyone who is joining us on TV or radio who has chosen abortion. God's mercy is bigger than your sin and your pain. In 10 years of priesthood, I have often been blessed to be the one who gets to welcome back a woman to the merciful embrace of God the Father, to take her hand, put it back in the hand of God the Father, after she has admitted to and repented of her abortion in the sacrament of confession. A priest in such a situation has the privilege of assuring the woman that she has never for a single moment lost the love of God the Father, nor her dignity as a beloved daughter of that same God, no matter what she did. And so I say to these women today, you do not have to hide from God one moment longer. I know it's exhausting to pretend that your pain is not real, that your loss is not immense, and that your choice wasn't devastating to you. But when you experience God's love and mercy even after an abortion, you will really come to know and experience that God's love in forgiving our most serious sins is even greater than his love in creating us. Your Father has been waiting for you for a very long time, mothers. It's time to come home. So now, having shared that important word with grieving mothers, let's return to the subject of our duty as Catholics in the public square. When we consider that a woman can walk into a Planned Parenthood and have her baby put to death because she doesn't want to jeopardize her education or career, we must acknowledge that those shocking scenarios described previously are not only possible, not only real, but are among the most common reasons for abortion in America. Even the word abortion has been drained of its meaning. We treat it like nothing more than a term that starts a heated debate rather than a procedure that stops a baby's heartbeat. Many want to treat abortion as merely one issue among many, but that requires that a person pretend not to know what abortion is or what abortion does. So let's stop beating around the bush with regard to the current presidential race. Do you know which candidate and party promotes abortion and even intends to expand its availability both at home and abroad? Do you know? Do you know that this candidate and party intend to make you and me pay for other people's abortions with our tax dollars, even though that has always been illegal in our country? Are you aware that this candidate and party, which until recently said that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, no longer even bothers to say that it should be rare, but rather that it must be available any time, any place, and up to the last moment that that fully formed, full-term baby remains in the womb? If you do not know which candidate and party I'm referring to, then you should not even consider voting until you do. Ignorance in this area is unacceptable because ignorance in this area costs millions of babies their lives and jeopardizes the souls of many Catholic voters. On the other hand, if you do know which candidate and party want to promote and expand abortion, and you still intend to enable them to continue their war on the unborn with your vote, then it is my duty as a priest to tell you that your soul will be in grave danger, especially if you present yourself for Holy Communion after casting such a vote with the full knowledge of what you are doing. Every election season, when a priest addresses such topics from the pulpit, a certain portion of the population complains that he's preaching politics. A priest has no business discussing politics in church. That's what some people say. But what does God say to the priest whom he has designated to be a spiritual father for the people entrusted to his care? Here's what God said to the prophet Ezekiel. I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. If I say to the wicked, O wicked man, you shall surely die, and you do not speak to warn the wicked to turn from his way, the wicked man shall die in his sin, but his blood I will require at your hand. But if you warn the wicked to turn from his way, and he does not turn from his way, he shall die in his sin, but you will have saved your life.